Regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District is now called to order. It is Monday, September 16th, 2019. The time is 5:15 p.m. Joanne, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Commissioner Ernst?
Here.
Commissioner Engel?
Here.
Commissioner Rowan?
Here.
Commissioner Vogelsong?
Here.
Commissioner Wright? Here.
Yes, we welcome all of you. If you would please silence your phones, and if you need to have a conversation, please step out to the hallway since we have our new video and sound system. That would be appreciated. Commissioners, are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, it's time for public requests. If you would please step to the microphone, you may state your name and address. And if you would limit your comments to 3 minutes tonight, please. Don't everybody jump up at once. Welcome, Barry.
Thank you. Well, that was quite a night the other night. Quite a week. I don't know if we,
Do you
A
want
copy.
to give your address, Barry?
3088 Northwest 27th Avenue,
All right, so your full name, please, if you can, too.
BARRYTETRABLT. Sorry. Oh, yeah. So, I don't know if anything's changed since then, but I guess my impression is, you know, other than having coffee every once in a while now, we're going to go our separate ways. Unless other deliberations ensue that would require, you know, joint effort. But, you know, I really got to applaud you guys for standing up the way you did for what you believed in. And, you know, the whole, you can do it for 8 million thing, it was circus-like. You know, you looked at a synopsis of what they got on their RFI. I pulled this off their website. They're just little synopsises. And out of the 16, half of them didn't account for the pertinent structures. Just for the golf course, 8.5 million, whatever, close. They didn't have the maintenance building, pump houses, restrooms, maintenance facility, nothing, just threw a number out. And who knows what their vision is, what, you know, you can't really look, but, you know, we can raise taxes, you know, a little bit, 50% of not much is 15%. It's, you know, it's not, I mean, it's not much. Getting a loan, to me, sounds like a really good idea, just do it yourself. Get them out of it. I know they offered you in this letter that was at the meeting, so they would basically build, operate the 18-hole golf course, their design, their everything, go away. They'll also maybe help you with the programming or some other ideas on the East course. No thanks, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not a voter. I am a voter, but I'm not on the commissioner list to vote, but it's a no-go for me. And I think you guys should just go forward, do it, get it started. We have a vision of a professional, higher-end architect. Now, it costs a little bit more money, but in the final analysis, both sides of that golf course are going to be phenomenal. And if you let them dumb it down to some strip of land that's just been scraped and replanted as sod and throw in some sand, call it a golf course, they've done their job, and they haven't. Especially when no one will say where that $65 million is gonna go.
Thank you, Barry.
Nowhere.
We've got our 3 minutes.
Well, we don't have our $65 million in our pocket, well, fine. Make an agreement. We're gonna donate, when that money comes available, we'll give you X. We'll give you $20 million. Build something nice, have a nice day. Easy, no. Where's it going? We all know where it's
Your 3
going.
minutes are up, but thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Angelo Sand, 7348 East Country Club Boulevard, Boca 33487. First of all, I'd like to apologize. Last 2 months have been real difficult for me, and I haven't attended the meetings. I read everything and seen everything online. But there comes a time when there's only so much you can do, you know. But things are a little better now, and so I wanted to come to the meeting tonight. You know, when we look at this facility, the one thing that I've always tried to express, not only here but at City Council, was it's bigger than a golf course. This is a community development program. This facility will revitalize the north end of our city. From Yamato on, Yamato North, this facility will do wonders as far as that section of Boca is concerned. You know, in 2005, we lost the executive course because of Hurricane Wilma. And then in 2016, we lost Ocean Breeze. That has a huge detrimental impact on the economic value of the property owners who live in the north side, whether you are in a condominium, whether you own your own home, whether you have a business. This, to me, has always been a community development program. You know, what I've seen when I've read and listened to, I keep hearing the number 24 million for a golf course. That's not correct. It's 24 somewhere in a million for an 18-hole golf course, for a 9-hole course, for a practice range, for a learning center, for a practice putting green, for a clubhouse, for a maintenance garage, for a tunnel on the 2nd Street, and for all the equipment that goes along as far as a course and all of the infrastructure needed. This isn't 20 or 24 million for one golf course. This is 24 million for an entire facility. Plus, you know, it seems that being a first-class facility has kind of lost its zing in Boca Raton. You know, we pride ourselves. Boca Raton being a first-class city. Well, first-class city means you have first-class facilities. That's how you become a first-class city. Not by building second and third-class things, okay? I'd like to give you an example. Bright Line Station, is that my?
That's your 3 minutes, Angelo.
Okay, bottom line, we're either gonna pay now for the entire facility, or we're gonna pay later, piece by piece by piece by piece. Look at Osprey, look at Deer Creek, they're playing catch-up. Thank you so much, thank you.
Thank you, Angelo. Thank you, we appreciate your time.
Hi, my name is Sue Divino. I live at 6200 Northwest 2nd Avenue in Boca. I have just a few comments. At the last meeting, we had one of the city council members state that the Boca Chica area does not warrant a world-class golf course. And I think she caught herself because then the mayor stepped in and reminded them that they get over $6 million in tax monies from our area. And what the gentleman just said about revitalizing, you have to see it. There's work going on Northwest 2nd, and it's stopping right now at Yamato Road. What happened to the north side of that? Boca Chica, I know, is represented here, and this is not a golf course for just Boca Chica. As Angelo just said, it's for the whole city. And Harold Chaffee said something that made a lot of sense. You know what? It was stated, you know, not a lot of people will use a golf course. But he said, well, what if I don't use the beach? Do we close the beaches? Or what if I don't play tennis and I don't use this facility? Everything in Boca is for all the residents, whether or not you use it, someone comes to visit you and they use it. And the one question I have, is the vote going to be taken tonight for the Parks Department to take care of the project on their own? Because that's what we're here for. We're here to support you, and it's not just the people here, it's most of the residents that I've spoken to, not just in Boca Chica, but within the city limits.
Stay tuned.
Hello, Robert Duque, 5351 Northwest 3rd Terrace. I would like to, first of all, point out, I think I figured out what the vision difference is between the Beach and Park District and what the city is talking about. One of the big differences, I think, has been the 400-yard driving range that you have on the east course. I think that your vision that was propelled by probably Mr. Koski and some other people who are looking to bring a world-class golf tournament here, said that that's what you needed. I can tell you that if you've been to Top Golf, nets work pretty good. And a 300-yard driving range on the west is sufficient for 95% of the golfers out there. That's a big difference. Also, moving around buildings, such as the maintenance facility. I think that right now, it's very easy to say, let's put it over there by the railroad track. I can tell you, unfortunately, that when trucks start backing up at 7 in the morning, those neighbors probably aren't going to like to hear those beeping sounds that's going to be happening, or the view overlooking that maintenance facility. So again, I think the vision is really different. I think the big vision difference is whether or not it's a golf course for all golfers. And this is what one of the lady that was here during the golf charrette that you had with 17 different architects coming. She pointed out that you really need to build a golf course for people with a handicap of like 7 and over. Because the incremental cost, apparently, of building one for professional level golfers really seems to be the big difference to me. And also, if you go back and look at the February 25th meeting of this organization, you'll see that Design 4 was added and approved because there were 3 different designs before that point. There was no public discussion on that design once it was proposed. All of you, I know, talked with Wayne and everybody beforehand. I could see you talking about it right before the meeting started. But also Wayne's comments at that meeting is that the Beach and Park District did not provide any type of a budget for them. They had a self-imposed budget which resulted in the $28 million deal. Again, maybe that was part of the vision difference as well. And he also said specifically in quotes, this is a basic golf course, 18 holes. This golf course, can you tell me what is so unique about this golf course that cannot be replicated by anybody else? This is 18 holes. Wayne said it on February 25th at that meeting. Is there anything, are there any, he said there's no babbling brooks running through this golf course. I think that turning down $20 million approximately between the golf course and phase 2 is, I don't know if that's financially responsible for this body who's trying to get money. And thank you.
Mr. Decay.
Good evening, Larry Portnoy on behalf of GL Homes. I do happen to be a city resident, 5500 North Military Trail. I just wanted to bring everybody up to speed where our deal is with the city in case everybody's not aware of it. We just had an ordinance adopted with the city. We were supposed to close on October 30th of this year. Our closing was extended for another 1-year period to October 30th of 2020. The city unilaterally controls a 6-month option to extend. They must give us 60 days notice in order to exercise that option. There is a second 6-month option to extend, but it must be mutual, which is for our perspective, just based upon where we are in other developments and our need for the property, that we may need the land even if the city wanted to extend, whether or not Boca National is ready or not. So it wasn't highly publicized of what was going on with our deal, but I just want to make sure everybody fully understands where GL is. As far as the 65 million, why there's no guarantees in life. I've been just celebrating my 30th year with GL. I buy land for GL, I've been doing it for a long time, and I would bet my bottom dollar the city will see their 65 million no matter what transpires.
Sorry, when is your closing date?
Your next
Right
contract?
now, it's October 30th of 2020.
And is there an extension of it?
There's a 6-month option, a unilateral option for the city to extend to, I believe, it's April 30th of 2021. And then there must be a mutual, there's a second 6-month option to extend, but it must be mutual on both parties to extend it to October of 2021.
Okay.
That's in writing, the ordinance is adopted.
Thank you.
That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Larry.
Good evening. I'm Gabriel Banfi, 2121 North Ocean Boulevard, Boca Raton. My comment is a little more general. I come here to congratulate you and encourage you to continue on what it seems to be a very unified position to get for Boca Raton a world-class golf course and nothing else. In addition, I come here because every time that there is a discussion between this body and the city hall, some local newspapers come with a red herring about Ocean Strand. Since 1992, along with Electa Base, which you probably don't know, Vitt family, Vitt couple, and some others that are not any longer with us. We have been trying to keep this Ocean Strand for posterity. Now they say that there is an offer, excuse me, for $67.2 million for this piece of wonderful land here in Boca Raton. I suppose, this is an exchange for fiat currency in exchange for something for posterity, for all our children and grandchildren. I encourage this body to continue to defend the beauty of Boca Raton with this world-class golf course and maintaining Ocean Strand as a natural park. No need to be developed, no need to spend money yet, but try to get that golf course world-class. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banfi. And I see we welcome Councilman Thompson. Thank you, Mr. Thompson, for coming. Hi, Mr. Zaccaro.
Al Zaccaro, 561 Golden Harbor Drive. 3 minutes is an awful short period of time for somebody that's a lawyer, and we write briefs of 10,000 words. I'm going to go down it quickly. First of all, generally speaking, I support every action that you folks are considering with regards to how to raise your revenues so that you have more capital to work. I don't know the numbers. I don't want to take a position on any particular deal. All I am saying is it's consistent with what I want, what I've been arguing, and that is you need to make yourself independent of the city. The city, it was painful to watch that 3-hour meeting the other day. It was a complete disrespect to this body. It was disrespectful in so many different ways. To be told that they weren't kept up and they don't know what's going on, horse manure. They got people in the audience that report every week back, every move that you guys make. They know it the day after you make it, and if the city council is not paying attention, that's their problem, not your problem. Next thing, you represent more people than the city does. The city's got 100,000 people. You represent that 100,000 plus the people that are not in the city. So your audience is even bigger than the city's audience to be concerned about. I think the best money that you folks are spending right now is with your lawyers. And the reason that I say that is that because I love the idea that you're reviewing all of the interlocals. I love the idea that you are trying to find a way to make yourself independent of the city. And if you can renegotiate those interlocals, I would encourage you to do it. In fact, I would encourage you to find a way to not give the city $16 million a year to do the things that it does. But that's probably way beyond the scope of what I really want to say. I guess in totality, by doing what you're doing and making yourself more independent in terms of the money, you go to the city and you deal with from a position of strength rather than from a position of weakness. When you go there now and you say to them, we want this, we want that, and the other thing, and they tell you what they think, you're subservient to them, you're second-rate citizens to them, you're not dealing for strength because you're asking them for money. When you get to the point where you don't have to ask them for money, they can't unreasonably withhold their consent to the design. You folks will be on your own, you'll do it on your own, it'll get done. That's the golf course. But I'm not really concerned simply for the golf course. You've got $50 to $60 million of items that you have to do in the next 2 to 3 to 5 years. You don't have that money. You have to make yourself independent of the city because you can't be going to them looking for it. And I doubt that the day will come that you will see dime one out of the $65 million. I don't care when that deal closes. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Good evening, Joe Pedalino, 2121 North Ocean Boulevard. That joint meeting was quite distressful. It was almost as bad as pulling teeth. First of all, let me tell you my bias. I am not a golfer. I think I played golf twice in my life. I played 5 holes and 18 holes, and that was about almost 60 years ago. My skin in the game is that I am a resident and taxpayer. So I just wanted to establish that bias. The meeting started, both parties knew all the issues, they've been discussed many times, and yet 3 hours later, there was not a shred of common ground. Not one iota of common ground. That is virtually impossible, except for the fact that you have come to the realization that the city had no intentions of making any compromise whatsoever. They went in there with an agenda, they poo-pooed every single comment. The only 2 items that they kept harping on is, 1, we weren't notified early enough, and 2, we could do it a lot cheaper. On the first item, early intervention by the city, you would have been sitting here now discussing where the golf course was going to be located and exactly what it was going to look like, and God no further. On the second issue about being cheaper, you could always do a project cheaper. That's the easiest thing in the world. I can tell you in the first hour I was paying attention to every word that was said, second hour I was kind of dozing off, by the third hour I was daydreaming, and sometime during the third hour, I was soliciting again to maybe about the NT time, about we could do it cheaper for 15 million, I think the term was constantly being thrown out. And I kind of remember this, a time I was in Ohio talking to a farmer, and he was talking about a person that wanted to stable his horse for a short period of time because his farm was being renovated. And the first stable he went to, they wanted $10, and he said, gee, that's kind of hard, $10 a day. He says, yes, but we walk the horse twice a day, we make sure the horse is groomed, and we feed it oats in addition to hay. And once more, we know you're a farmer, so we'll save the manure for you. And then he went to a second one, it was $5, not as many amenities, but acceptable. Then one that was $3, and finally it came to one that was $1. And he said, oh, well, I'll sign that agreement right now. And by the way, I like to be able to keep the manure. Sir, for $1, there will be no manure. So the thing is that I don't think the city proceeded in good faith. I think the district did. It's unfortunate. They talk about 15 million. Well, if they intended to spend 15 million, then they should at least put that money where their mouth is. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for all your time and effort in making this community a better place to live.
Thank you, Joe.
What the heck?
Come on, Tony.
Tony DeDino, 6200 Northwest 2nd Avenue. I just wanted to know if you guys, the board, are you, because you talked about a $20 million deal there versus the original 28. Are you still on the $20 million, the stripped down version? You know,
It's not a stripped down.
well, you know, they eliminated a few things.
They did eliminate a few things. It's kind of like buying a house. You know, maybe everything isn't there when you buy the house, but eventually you want to plan to maybe do a renovation on the kitchen or the bathrooms.
Okay.
possibly we would go forth and do more things than the
Later.
20 million.
But eventually it'll look like this.
That's the plan.
Okay, that's really all I have. And again, you guys are doing a great job.
Thanks, Tony. Anyone else? Hearing none? Public requests are now closed. It's time for the approval of the previous board minutes. Do we have that for you?
No, there's no.
Oh, there are no, I lied, my bad. Okay, our regular business. The first item on page 1 of the agenda packet, the Matisse Business Services Contract Renewal. Brianne.
Commissioners, we've been using Matisse Business Services for accounting and also for our payroll. They've been really responsive and easy to work with. I'd like to continue that. There is an increase in $150 a month increase for this new agreement, but I am asking tonight for your approval of the contract for $1,650 a month.
And the other change is it's a one-year agreement rather than the previous 3-year agreement that Brianne feels that this is the right thing to do at this time.
Yes.
Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to accept the Matisse for another 1-year contract as.
Second.
Mr. Engel, second. Any more discussion? All in favor of accepting the Matisse business proposal, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes, Joanne. Okay. Number 2, the budget discussion.
Also in your folders, Commissioners, there's the revised budget based upon last week's tentative millage rate of 1.0519. I put this in there with also the revised line of $500,000 set aside for Gumbo Limbo. This is where we'll be at as we move forward into next year and start talking about projects. I don't think there's any appetite tonight to start talking about where we want to allocate that $7 million, but those are certainly things we can do throughout next year as we look at projects.
Commissioners, do you have any comment? Mr. Rollins?
Yes, ma'am, I do, and there wasn't a more appropriate spot on the agenda this evening to address a motion that I would like to make than as it deals with the golf course. Commissioners, we worked long and hard for many months to put the Boca National Golf Course project in front of the public and the City Council. You recall that we interviewed 17 to 18 golf course architects, and after a very thorough process, selected Price Fazio to design the Boca National Golf Course. The public throughout this process was very supportive of the interviews, the selection of the architect, and the design as they sat through our deliberations and our recommendations from Price Fazio. We have presented plans and costs to the Boca Raton City Council on numerous occasions, either at workshop or joint meetings. Commissioner Ernst did a marvelous job in presenting what we thought was a win-win ticket for a compromise, but still we have not been able to come together with the City Council on the design or the costs associated with the design. After 3 hours at our last joint meeting, it was clear to me that no funding would be forthcoming, and in fact it was stated by a council member that in her opinion there were only two solutions. One, the city build a golf course, or we build a golf course. Clearly the city was not prepared to assist with the funding of the Price Fazio design due to the costs associated with this design. Commissioners, we have vetted Price Fazio and their design costs and have tightened the number up substantially over the first projection. And perhaps there are even other cost areas that may deserve reviewing. But at this point, I'd like to make the following motion, if it pleases the chairman. The Beach and Parks District should move forward without financial assistance from the City of Boca Raton and engage Jerry Ford, our financial analyst, to investigate the least expensive way to fund the construction and to seek his advice on the feasibility of obtaining a bond rating if it is in his opinion, it would facilitate a low rate of financing. Of course, advise Mr. Ford that time is of the essence.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion. Okay, Mr. Ernst.
I agree with Mr. Rollins, and I thank you for the compliment. And I thank Madam Chair for the work she's done in meeting. It was 3 hours, but this is the first time we've done this. We've done it multiple times. And it is disheartening that we couldn't get along and get some kind of agreement with it. But I think what's left on the table was we needed to respond to the letter from the city. And they asked, in that letter, they were seeking to take over the golf course and run with it. Our preference is to, we never really got through the definition of design. And there's a lot of different components of what design are. So for an immediate thing, I guess what I would prefer that we do is that we send back a letter to the city saying we would like to proceed with our definition of design to immediately start building the east course, being the driving range, the maintenance facility, the short course with the Price Posio team. But we will need access to the west side, which is technically under their title, for the irrigation system. And we will proceed with our own money to do so and complete a first class, I'll call it world class, I'll call it destination, whatever you want to call it. The context, I think, is very inappropriate to call Boca Chica not world class, because they are paying $6 million in taxes and they deserve a decent family-friendly environment, and I think this course will add a lot to it. What I don't want to address is I don't want to address the hotel, a club, a tunnel. I don't want to address any of those things right now, and I appreciate those things. I think we were inconsistent in our message, as the gentleman said, Tony, that what are we doing? Is it all these things or just one of them? Our definition, my definition of design is the driving range, the major components, the driving range, the short course, the maintenance facility of the east. Everything else is not going to address the clubhouse or the tunnel or any of that. But to do that, we need to have access to the irrigation. So I would respond to him with that, not addressing what we're doing with the west course. In the meantime, I agree with Mr. Rollins, we have to proceed with the financing. So there's two components to the financing. Mr. Ford has to explore the market for a revenue bond type financing, which I think we will be successful in getting. But I would also add that we should get a credit rating. And I'm pretty comfortable that our credit rating, if we get it from S&P or from Moody's, will be on par with the city. And that will enlighten us to what our true borrowing power is. And it's also good to have a third party, such as the credit rating agency, reaffirm our financial position and our capabilities. And I think that will give us the support we need to go to the financial markets and will enable us to get independent financing. And if we can't, then we will proceed on a different path that will take a little bit longer, but at the end, we will build a course that is appropriate for Boca Raton, all residents.
Thank you, Craig. Bob?
Craig, I appreciate your support on the motion, and I really think that by starting the East course, or having a discussion right now probably is not the best time to discuss what we want to do, since we don't have all the options. What I had in mind when I made this motion is that we examine what our financial position will be through financing, through funding, and then make a decision once we have all the components to this as to whether we want to go forward with just the east side. But I would prefer, and I probably I'd have some support with this, is that we obtain financing, if at all possible, and do the entire golf course in its entirety rather than just the one component. I realize too that if we do just the east side, that certainly sends a clear message that we are in this for the long term, and we're going to develop a course. And by getting started, it shows the community that we're doing something with the east side. But my preference would be, as you said, send the city a letter that we thank them for their offer, but we feel like that we're in a position to where we can move forward with the development of the golf course, and we'll prefer doing it. And we'll do that without their financial assistance at this time. if the financing comes back and falls into place like it does, then we should know that within, I'm not sure, if we go to get a bond rating from, financial rating from Moody or someone, it may take a little bit longer, 2 or 3 months, I suspect. And if that were the case, then we could decide if we want to do just the east side. But I think for tonight, for the purpose of our motion, I would just like to indicate as in response to one of the council person's comments, that it's either the city do the project or us do the project, and I'm recommending we do the project, and for the purpose of this motion, just leave it at that and let the city know that that's our direction.
Steve?
I thought long and hard about this weekend. And it's always been my preference that whatever we do on the golf course, we do in conjunction and in collaboration with the city. But the sense that I got from last week's meeting is that the city isn't interested in our input on any level. And Councilwoman O'Rourke was correct. It's either their way or our way. Either they're going to do the whole thing or we're going to do the whole thing. And after listening to what I thought was just not an opportunity, but an intent to build Boca Muni 2, I felt like our way was the best way. The last thing I want to see is 5 years after the course is completed as a Boca Muni 2, and it's not even breaking even or barely so, somebody comes to the city with an offer to develop the property residentially or otherwise, and all of a sudden what we had as green space is now going to be 400 homes or mixed use retail and office space, apartment building complex. I don't want to see that. And my fear is if we don't do this the right way, that's what we're going to end up with. So I have to thank Mr. Rollins for his motion, which I support. I support it reluctantly, but I don't see any other way.
Oh, I was bummed after that meeting. Because I've always kind of had my glass is half full with the city, hoping that we could kind of work something out with them. It took 3 hours of going in circles to find out that maybe something might not happen with the city. But I feel like if maybe we did kind of start on the east side, we still could work out something on the west side with them, because I do know that they do want to still help. I feel like they do, at least most of them do. And I mean, I think we should go out and look for financing and figure out what our finances will be for it in case we do have to do it all. But I still think we should work with Wayne and Tommy to see where we can bring the price down, but still not sacrifice in the golf course, and focus on the driving range and not necessarily, the clubhouse and the tunnel and that kind of stuff, which we can focus on later if we need to.
Wayne and Tommy are committed to helping in any way with the pricing. It's just that we need to.
I know it's a big scope, I know.
We have to go for to get an RFP for a contractor, and that's the next step, but that will be another discussion right after this.
Can we do that though before a design is approved?
That's where I'm gonna go for after we vote. Yes, Bob?
I think that throughout this process, after hiring Price Fazio, we realized that we had a professional group of guys that are dedicated to seeing this project completed. I mean, not only Wayne, but Tommy have been here. They've taken time to meet with the members of city council. And I told Wayne in the beginning, this is not like you're going to be doing this for a country club, because a board of directors can make the decisions. We're a public entity, and the decisions have to be very thoroughly vetted. And it's going to be, you're going to be meeting with a lot more different people than just a small golfing committee. After the meeting that we had, and it wore me out too, Aaron, I was deflated, because I thought, sure, there might be some way that we could have a collaboration. I don't see that as being possible if we want to have the Price-Fazio design. And I think we've said from the very beginning that these are the people we wanted to do our golf course. They've worked with us to vet the pricing down to 19 million. As I said in my comments earlier, there may be some things there that we may want to address at the appropriate time. But I really feel like that to get the Price-Fazio design, we're going to need to do this project ourselves. Otherwise, we're reluctantly going to have the project taken over, and any one of the other respondents to the RFI might be given an opportunity. And there were some interesting comments in those RFIs, but nothing that I could see that would materially affect the cost of what we're doing. And, you know, I think definitions are subject to individual interpretation, whether it's world-class, whether it's destination. But the interesting thing is that, you know, I see advertising in the newspaper this morning that the Boca Muni is a championship golf course. And maybe that's where the vision is different. I have a different vision for a championship golf course than what is envisioned at Boca Muni. And I'm not criticizing the staff, and I want to be quite clear about that, is that the staff does the best job with the resources they have to do their job. But I think that if this property that we're in, Hatch Reef and Sugar Sand, is any indication of the kind of work that the district does, I think that the Boca National Golf Course is going to be just as detailed and just as successful as what the other facilities are that we manage.
Thank you. We have a motion. Joanne, would you read the motion back to us? You want, does it want to read back? Yes, please.
I'll be happy to give this to you too, Joanne.
Thank you.
The motion is that the Beach and Park District move forward without financial assistance from the city of Boca Raton, and engage Jerry Ford, our financial analyst, to investigate the least expensive way to fund the construction and to seek advice on the feasibility of obtaining a bond or credit rating if, in his opinion, it would facilitate a lower rate of financing.
Wait, just, I don't want to I still don't want to rule out working with the city if possible in that statement. I'm not opposed to going out and working with Mr. Ford to look at financing, but I still don't feel like we should absolutely say we're not going to take any money from the city if we can work it out with them on the west side. I think that's irresponsible.
What I said was we'd move forward without financial assistance. It doesn't indicate it's a closed door, Aaron, but I thought the door pretty well closed on us at the meeting Thursday night. I feel very
I still
strong.
feel like there's a crack. If there's any,
Maybe, Aaron, to your point, what I would suggest is possibly amending it, Bob. You're saying without financial assistance, so thinking ahead, that what if Mr. Ford comes through with options, and when we come back to actually doing this, the financing is cheaper through the city and they offer it. I just want to make sure we have the flexibility. That's, in the end, I think that's what you're getting to.
Let me ask counsel, Sam,
Yes, sir.
if later on the facts of the matter change and it turns out that we have other financial options, financing with the city that are more feasible or are better terms than what we get with Ford, are we able to engage in that discussion?
May I respond, Madam Chair?
Absolutely, Mr.
Short
Gordon.
answer is yes. I mean, to the extent that you're looking at all financing options, you've hired an outside consultant who is well known to the industry and the profession. He's a financial advisor in the truest of senses. He's licensed, he's qualified. He's also a fiduciary. So in the event that there are bases upon which he can recommend a revenue bond or some other financing option for you, it does not preclude any other financing option. At some point in time, if you so choose, if you have options, you can pick and choose what option works best for the organization as a public entity. So the motion would not exclude, in my view, the ability to look at other options. And quite frankly, what Jerry may tell you is that there are sub-options or other conditions upon which there may be some better option available that he could recommend to you, among a series of others.
Aaron, are you good with that?
Are we amending this?
No.
Okay? Okay. We have a motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes, Joanne. Mr. Gorin, the next little hiccup is the approval of the design. What is the next step to obtain the approval? And how should we go about that?
Okay, a couple of observations, Madam Chair and Commissioners. This discussion is really governed by your interlocal agreement with the City of Boca Raton that was dated back in February of 2018. And that's the document that you've been traveling under for the past number of months, particularly in the context of the things you've done to get to where you are today, from the vetting of your golf course designer, to hiring a financial advisor, to engaging through that advisor potentially bond counsel to assist you, as well as looking at the various and sundry matters that relate to that plan. We've had this discussion before, and to the extent that this district will need at some point in time to have a relationship with the City of Boca Raton by submitting plans for the city. As you know, there's a specific provision in the document, which I think is worth noting, again for the record, that talks about the consent that's required. And I'm going to read it again, although you probably have memorized it on your own. It's on page 10 of the document, at paragraph number 7. And it says improvements to the property. The planning, design, and development of the property, and the property is a defined term, as you know, shall be the complete responsibility of the district, and the funding of all costs relating to said planning, design, and construction shall be paid by the district. Prior to the district finalizing any plan for improvement of the property, parentheses, and any amendments thereto, hereinafter referred to as the improvement plan, and or issuing or approving any request for proposal for the planning, design, or construction of the improvements to the property, the district mandatorily shall provide a publicly noticed opportunity for members of the public to receive information on such proposed plan and to present input and or comments on such proposed plan and or any request for proposal. Additionally, the city shall be provided the opportunity prior to approval by the district to review, comment on, and approve any improvement plan which approval shall not be unreasonably withheld. The district agrees that it shall not implement an improvement plan or any part thereof unless the above described opportunity for the public to receive information and present input or comments has been provided and the improvement plan has been previously approved by the city in writing. And lastly, the district further agrees that during the term of the bonds and any and all improvements plans shall not alter the use of the property or any part thereof such that the property shall at all times be used only for public purposes. That is a seminal provision to your relationship with the City of Boca Raton. Whether you like the city or not, or the city likes you or not, is not relevant to this conversation. What is relevant is the legal obligation between both the city and the district to work towards fulfilling this provision. Thus far, and I'm just your lawyer, but I believe that you've hired a highly qualified, nationally recognized golf course designer to provide you with a plan. I think it's up on the screen. That plan is evidenced by their near site plan for delivery for the city to review. If you believe that it is timely, and I know that back in the spring, maybe April, May, or June of this past year, there have been submittals to the city. Obviously, the conversation that occurred between Price Fazio and council members was based upon that proposed plan. So if the district is of a mind to, at this point, finalize its plan, which is defined by the contract, the interlocal agreement, and submit that plan for review, you then become in a process with the city of Boca Raton for their review and approval. That also can coincide, if you were to fast track the conversation, or if we have a parallel track, better said, to actually go to the street and see what the market will bear in the context of cost and expense for the construction. That too was a question you asked earlier during the course of tonight's discussion. That too is a legal possibility to the extent that you would choose to do that, to go to an RFP or a bidding process to at least get a sense for what the market will bear or the market will cost you in the context of that plan. So from the standpoint of discussion, this provision does inextricably tie you to the city of Boca Raton. It does require good faith. It does require that there be rational and reasonable thinking on both parties' parts, and that the city, once it has the access to the documents, the data, the information, the professional opinions and such, that they would make a reasonable and rational decision to approve the site plan. Barring that, then you find yourself in a less tenuous situation with the city, because at that point you're in a frictional relationship, because if you don't get their approval, receive their approval, obviously the contract bears relevance to not being able to proceed. I'm not setting you up for that potential point of confrontation, but the contract does contemplate good faith, does contemplate being not arbitrary, not capricious, being agreeable in the context of a rational, reasonable review of what you're submitting for that review. I don't think you've actually formally submitted yet. You've given a preliminary submittal to the city. If it be the wish of the board here to submit a final plan, or would it appears to be something near a final plan for consideration, along with the consultation with your golf course consultant, as well as your golf course designer, that's something within your purview to do.
Thank you, Sam. So you're saying that we should send the finalized design with a letter to the city asking for their approval?
Well, whatever the process is in the city of Boca Raton for the kind of approval that this document contemplates, whether it's a site plan whatever the planning department in the city requires in the context of submitting a plan for construction, that's what this contract would require you to do. And how in-depth that might be, I really can't say this evening on the record, but I can tell you that whatever the requirements are, you'd have to complete them. It does specifically talk about giving the city, being provided the opportunity prior to approval by the district to review, comment on, and approve any improvement plan which approval shall not be unreasonably withheld. So the document does imply and require that there be good faith on both parties' sides, and that the city be a willing reviewer of what it is that you're submitting. I know you made every effort publicly and privately to have those conversations with the council members. You are a governmental agency or an independent taxing district that has your own independent legal rights and authority. And what you're trying to do simply is fulfill your good faith obligations to pursue this project.
Do you see some value between the city council and our legal counsel, staff, and possibly a council member and a commissioner meeting? Or do you think that we need to go to the site plan strategy first and with asking for the approval?
If I may respond, Madam Chair, I think that the best answer is that any time you can have a positive and productive conversation or a constructive conversation, you should have one. It's not uncommon for the chair of an organization or a mayor to meet on a specific issue, also along with legal counsel and with directors or city managers and such like that. That's not uncommon. But if you, given the motion that just was adopted by the board, you're now on a track. You know, whatever track you were on before may have been just in conversation, as it were. You're on the train, and you're heading towards a station somewhere, and if the station is to build a golf course consistent with the Price-Fazio plan, that's the train you're on. So to the extent that you want to have that conversation with the city, certainly I'm willing to do that, along with my counterpart, I'm sure, yourself and the mayor and Brianne and the city manager. If that's something that you'd like to consider doing in the nearest possible time, that's certainly within reason to consider doing on a positive, upbeat basis, because the evidence of intergovernmental coordination and intergovernmental cooperation is also implied in this document. All interlocal agreements. Read the provisions in the beginning. It talks about joint efforts and essentially what's the Interlocal Government Act that controls this under Chapter 163. It provides for governments to cooperate with each other and to coordinate with each other. And not to be dispossessed of each other, but in fact to work together to get something done and to have a common destination. That was the intent, I believe, of this document. I wasn't here when it was drafted, but as a third party reviewing it objectively, It speaks to those types and kinds of issues where the parties shall work together in a positive, constructive fashion.
For the benefit of the public, this meeting, if it were to take place, would not be a meeting that would determine anything specifically. Each party would have to take it back to their respective boards and for a vote. So there would be nothing that was determined. It would just be a meeting to try to get some information and try to collaborate to try to get this going forward. Commissioners?
So Madam Chair, I still would like to go back to I agree with the concept that we pursue the price policy of design for the entire golf course, but in the spirit of cooperativeness and what we have presented over and over, we presented a $19.9 million golf course that excluded the clubhouse area and the tunnel. And so if you're going to present a design and give it to the city, I think we need to be consistent in our message and then exclude those items. And one of the reasons I like to exclude the clubhouse area is because we've talked about when we first purchased the property, the availability of a hotel or other use of the site there that would help in the destination and the drive, or the driving range and the short course, and I think we should pursue it. So if you present the current plan, which has the clubhouse carved out as well as the tunnel, I think that is not my wishes, and I'd like to make sure that that is excluded from the submitted plans.
So you want to exclude the clubhouse and the tunnel, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
We have a temporary clubhouse on there.
This is temporary.
It's a temporary clubhouse.
Temporary being a trailer, no problem. We've talked about the trailer clubhouse being on the east or the west. I have no concerns on, but no permanent structure being where the hotel currently is, because I think we should market that property to see what other options we can do that will integrate into the golf course.
Commissioners, any comment?
Well, you know, out of due respect for Craig, I was wondering exactly, is there anything else in this site plan that would need to be changed? But I would support Craig's position on that, just to make sure we've covered all the options. I think I said in the beginning that, you know, when we had C.D. Richard Ellis do an analysis, you know, it wasn't very, depending on who read the analysis, it wasn't determined to be the best location, but there could be something that would be, I've heard other things tossed out as as maybe what's the word I'm looking at, a ale house for restaurant. Thank you, Craig. You know, but I think the deal is pretty well zoned in there, except for that one site. Would you agree?
I would agree.
Okay, and so I think if we approach that with that in mind, you're fine with us, with the chairman and Sam and staff going to meet with council and see, with the city manager and mayor.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think that's a good next step to take, really good.
So as you do that approach though, financially, I do believe we will have the funding to start the east part of it. So it can be a phased approach to do the whole golf course between what we have currently in free cash reserves and the incoming next tax year. I think we'll have sufficient proceeds to start, with the east. Now, you need to think about how you're going to approach the whole project, because it all starts, as I understand it, with the irrigation system, which is on the west. And so I caution you that if there is no design approval and we have to go down this path of a legal conversation, it is a further delay for all residents to have any kind of golf course. And so my only intent in focusing on the east first is gaining permission to build the irrigation system, which is what everyone needs anyway. We have differences of opinion of the type of irrigation system probably, but it's unfortunate, but I think we need to go forward with it.
Yeah, and I don't totally disagree with your request, Craig, but I'd say that we're not at that bridge yet. you know, but if it got to the point where it looked like this was gonna be a protracted negotiation, then maybe that would be the thing to do, because I do think that it ultimately went out in the development of this course with Price Fazio on both sides. I really feel that very strongly. And I think if we make a good faith effort with the city in this discussion, I think that they'll eventually give us the approval. You know, I go back to what was said in when Aaron asked the question, what about the course do you not like? And the response was the price. And I don't argue the fact that it's more than, ultimately when everything's in, more than what the city had got from their RFI, but they were just looking at the west side of the golf course. And I think that if you look at the design that we have, the components that are in that, it's everything that I think everybody wants in it, with a family-friendly location, the short course, the driving range. It's not designed for us 400-yard hitters, but I think it's a safety issue by putting it over on the east side. If it comes to the point where we feel like we're going to have a delay in getting the west side started, sure, it would be an opportunity for us to discuss doing the east side, and I'd support that.
So do I hear a motion to ask the city for the approval in a collaborative meeting between the councils, the staff, and members of the each body?
Let me just make one comment. I think, Chairman, I wish you would be specific on, you said council. I think it should be probably the mayor with you.
Right.
Our attorney, I believe, and Brianne. I think
And
that's.
Deanna.
And Deanna, the attorney for the city.
So that's what I
Okay, correct.
Thank you for clarifying that.
I have just one question. Did we get Brian, did we get any feedback from city staff on this plan?
I don't have anything in writing from city staff on it, but I could certainly talk to them.
I'd just like to know what city staff feels about the plan, and I don't know if they've ever spoken to city council about what they feel about the plan, and like on the maintenance, and anything that you guys have in terms of feedback on the plan, I feel like would be helpful to us.
We had feedback with a 17-page questionnaire feedback from city staff. But are you talking about rec services staff, if they weighed in on their personal thoughts? I don't have anything in writing. I think that they've been generally supportive, and I think Price Fazio is well respected as far as design. There's a conversation I had with one of the representatives from our Pros Consulting who worked with them, and they're a well respected designer. So I could certainly ask for their feedback. Sure.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Steve? Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Steve?
I was just gonna bring up what Brianne brought up about feedback that we got in terms of several written question documents. I think there were 2. And also something that occurred to me about the city claiming that they didn't know anything. We had countless number of meetings that were open to the public. There were transcripts of each meeting. And only recently has the city asked for input. Has the city gone out for an RFI? They asked questions. But there were no suggestions from the city as to, well, you might want to pursue this direction, you might want to pursue another direction. So we did what we thought best, having no input from the city, even though they had the opportunity. So I feel like when the city said, well, you kind of sprung this on us, we really didn't spring this on anybody. They had ample opportunity to have input. They had ample opportunity to attend the meetings. And Councilman Thompson, I do appreciate your coming down and attending our meetings, regardless of how we end up with this, it's still input, and the input is important. But
Councilwoman O'Rourke explained to me, because when I asked the very subject that you're bringing up, since we do have a lot of rec services staff who attend regularly, she explained that they have a different relationship with their staff than we do. We communicate very openly and very commonly with our staff, and they respond. But City Council, according to Ms. O'Rourke, is like the CEO of a corporation, and things filter down through administrative staff and then down to rec services staff, so they actually don't talk to them directly on a regular basis. So these messages that we thought were so furiously being recorded really weren't coming back like we would with Brianne or with our staff.
I understand that, but there were still transcripts of our meetings available and videos of our meetings available, and we didn't really get a response. And that could be for whatever reason. What I'm trying to point out here is that communication between the two bodies is sorely lacking. And I'm not casting blame on, more so on the city or more so on the Beach and Park District. This is something that if we do not address, and do not address soon, we're gonna be like the two houses of Congress. All right, you know, we'll be talking past each other. And the time is long past that we can talk past each other. We need to talk to each other, with each other, and have some kind of exchange, because this absolutely cannot go on.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
just to address what Steve said, we did make that first step by setting our first quarterly meeting, and we agreed that we in the future would meet quarterly. So that should go a long way to assisting in this reconnecting and communication, I would trust.
But not if we have another meeting like we had last week.
No, this would have to be a totally different, but I'd like to repeat my motion that we ask our chairman, our executive director, and our legal counsel to meet with the city manager, the city attorney, and the mayor in an effort to obtain approval for the master plan.
And that master plan excludes the clubhouse and the tunnel, which will be determined at a later date.
As amended.
Second.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I can, the
Yes, sir.
master plan to which you refer really, in the context of the ILA, refers to the improvement plan. That's the defined term in the document that includes the following and includes the following. The planning, design, and development of the property shall be the complete responsibility of the district, and the funding of all costs related to the said planning, design, and construction shall be paid by the district. Prior to the district finalizing any plan for improvement of the property and any amendments thereto, hereinafter referred to as the improvement plan. So your master plan is in a sense your improvement plan for the project.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any more discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Joanne. Is there any more budget discussion, Brianne?
I have nothing else now.
Commissioners?
Madam Chair, as part of the financing option, I still think it would be worthwhile to pursue at least investigate the credit rating agency cost and the structure as part of the overall financing. I believe by having that, it'll give you a more independent and a clearer picture of the true financing rate when you do achieve it.
I believe that was part of the motion.
Yes.
Okay,
It was.
thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Is there any more budget discussion? Moving on to the number 3, the employee pension discussion. Brianne?
Commissioners, we worked last year with Florida League of Cities, and they offer a retirement program for employees, which we found out we could piggyback with the Dade City agreement. We had Sam and Jacob investigated, and it looks like it would work in whatever terms you all decided as a board to move forward with, as far as tiered packaging or variations each year. So what I'd like to do is get their different options back to you and have us consider this in October as something we can adopt possibly by January for staff to have a retirement program in place.
I'll agree with that.
Fine with that.
I'm good with the direction.
Okay. Commissioners, are you all in agreement?
Yes.
Okay, that was easy. Number 4, Melissa, the artificial turf proposed change orders, number 7, 8, and 9, found on page 7 of your agenda packet.
Commissioners, thank you for your time tonight. I'd like to come before you to present potential change orders 7, 8, and 9 for the artificial turf. We are coming to the conclusion of this project on page 7. I gave you a summary sheet tracking the expenditures for this project. As a quick summary, you'll see that if 7, 8, and 9 were passed this evening, there would still be a remaining contingency of $19,445,000 and a permitting contingency of $20,000, which would therefore in effect make the budget approximately $40,000 under budget. If any of the change orders do not proceed, then obviously that would be adjusted by the appropriate amount. Change order number 7, because I always like to do the good ones first, is a credit. So I don't think there'll be much argument on that, but there was some design that had some lime rock base next to the curbs for the, and this just was in conjunction with our architect engineer and the construction company. They decided that this was something that they had not done in the past, and the architect engineer agreed that it was not necessary. So therefore, we were able to save $8,482.50. So I put that before you as change order number 7. I don't know if you guys want to vote on these individually.
Why don't you go through all of them and then we'll vote on them collectively.
Change order number 8 looks a lot worse than what it seems, because it is for $61,316. But I would encourage you to remember that on the date back in April 15th, you had pre-approved $40,000 as I came to you wanting to make sure that you were able to be asked about concrete expenditures in advance. So $40,000 of that $61,316 has already been pre-approved. They just had not put the change order through yet. As you can see on the notes, there's no reflection of that change order in there. So the end effect of that change order is $21,316. This will, I want to be full disclosure, there was a decision that had to be made on this in the field. So they went forward and used this because we had to have the concrete because it was an ADA issue. It was an ADA issue of the slope of the sidewalk in front of the restroom and concession stands at the field. So it would have cost us more money if we would have paused the work, sent the company away, and brought them back later to do the concrete work. So therefore, the construction company made the decision to move forward. So it's at your discretion if you will approve that. With the working relationships we have with them, I would ask the board to please seriously consider approving that change order. Change order number 9 is completely at your discretion. We have built into the budget for this project was a machine, for lack of a better word, a balancing machine. It's a spreader. Basically, it will go through and spread out the infield to make sure it's even after contests are played. But that particular machine has been purchased for the project and is ours now. But what it does not do is pick up any trash in the infield. So there is another piece of machinery that we can purchase that will go through and sift the infield and pull out bobby pins, rubber bands, paper wrappers, etc., to allow us to help keep the trash out of the field and keep the fields cleaner. So I brought this $3,100 to you as a potential change order to supply that machine. Since we were running under budget on this project, I thought it might be something you might want to consider.
Melissa, what do other municipalities do as far as that little sweeper thing?
They're the same types. This was the original we got is the one that everybody uses. And it will simply go through and even out the infield. The other one is hit or miss. Some facilities use it, some people don't. But I just think it is recommended by even our construction company to say this is a good way to keep the debris out that you don't want in your infield.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do I hear a motion on change order number 7? We'll proceed with that one first.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes, Joanne. Change order number 8, as Melissa described it. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Rollins seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. And for change order number 9, the sweeper for $3,100. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
One item for Melissa.
Yes, sir.
Because it's a piece of equipment, and it sounds like that's an attachment to a piece of equipment, that becomes a financial asset. You should notify, I guess, our accounting firm and duly mark it as a
Absolutely.
district piece of equipment.
Yes, sir.
Good point, Craig. Thank you.
And contact our insurance company too.
Yeah.
So we'll do that on both of the pieces, because they'll have to be notified of the original piece we were getting as part of the contract as well. So I'll work with Greg to get that put in the inventory.
Do you know the life of a piece of equipment like that?
I do not, I'm sorry.
And just someday find out, just, yeah, 7.5 years, okay.
3 to 5 years, that's always my answer to everything. You'll find out as we work it. I'm just kidding.
There's a motion on the table for change order number 9. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, like sign. Thank you very much, Melissa. Good job.
And just one more quick thing I'd like to, Commissioners, I did have a conversation quickly today that there is the potential of one or more change order coming to this project. I don't have the information now, but as we were getting inspections by the city, it was determined that we will need a water meter. And so, we are working on getting the price of that, but it should be nominal, so that could probably be the last change order we'll hopefully have coming for this project. Thank you for your time tonight.
Good job, Melissa. Mr. Ernst, approval of invoices, please.
Yes. Commissioners, I'd like to remove one of the invoices in your packet. That is the invoice for check number 3144 to Mr. Dukoski for $10,000. And specifically, my understanding is the amendment has not been concluded. I don't know that everyone's been able to receive or look at it. So I'll just pull that invoice, and it's not due till October anyway. So I'd like to make a motion for approval of the remaining invoices of $802,518.58.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes, Joanne. Okay, our executive director, Brianne Thompson.
Commissioners, we've been working with Melissa and Michael, I should say, Melissa and I have been working with Michael and Michelle on the needs assessment. Last week we worked with the representatives from PROS and also ETC, and Michael and Michelle have been very receptive to any of the changes that we wanted to make along the way, so I want to thank them for that. And overall, I think we're going to see some really insightful results that will help us guide future projects. I want to thank Michelle Zimmer especially for taking the lead on this. She put together a great cover letter and has helped keep us on track with the project, even with a few hiccups and a storm in the middle of it all. So thank you, Michelle, for that. We had some track repairs completed at Don Estridge. The school is happy, staff is happy. Thank you, Kevin and Greg, for getting that knocked out so quickly. I also want to give a thanks to all the Swim and Racket Center staff. Since we moved in here, we've kind of moved in on their territory a little bit, and anytime we've needed anything, whether it was last week when we added chairs and benches, they've been very accommodating and very helpful to us. So we quickly became good neighbors, or they became awesome neighbors. So thank you for that. And also, I want to give, this is like Recreation Services Appreciation Night here. Samantha Christensen of Patch Reef, we've been working on the Patch Reef Tennis and Community Center website, which is all in one. She's kind of taken the lead and been a great communicator between tennis and our consultant to get that website ready to go. So that's hopefully going to go live by the end of this week. So we'll have another website up and running. And then the RFP for communications was on the original agenda, then we revised it. What I'd like to do, I'm working with Jacob just to get the front end and back end documents. You guys have approved the scope of services that we're looking for. So once we get legal to approve the document in total, we'd like to go out for it. And I'm just asking for like a preemptive approval of it. We could put it out on the 1st of October and do a 30-day run with that and get them back in November, if everybody's okay with that. I think I may need a motion for that, Samuel.
You do.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes, Joanne.
That is everything.
Thank you, Brianne. We don't have a golf course update tonight. I gave Wayne the night off. And it is now time for Mr. Sam Gorin, our district council. Thank you, Mr. Gorin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Just a couple of observations to try to guide you. Chapter 163, which is the statute under which the interlocal agreement with the city exists, is the Intergovernmental Coordination Act, which allows local governments to actually join together for express purposes, to get certain things done and to cooperate and coordinate together. To the extent that there's a motion adopted this evening regarding Jerry Ford and financing options and looking at all manner of things that relate to potential project costing as well as implementation of the project, you also approved a motion to meet with the city, which is a worthy thing to do, and certainly something which is, I think, contemplated by the statute governing intergovernmental coordination. I had a brief discussion with the chair today in the context of another statute that follows directly after Chapter 163, which is called Chapter 164, which is kind of like the counterpunch to what happens when things don't exactly work out the way you'd like them to. This is not a premonition, this is not a prediction, this is just an observation for the board this evening to understand how the process works. If you fulfill your contract obligations under the interlocal agreement and you make every good faith effort to submit an improvement plan which you believe is consistent with all the things which the district believes is the right answer for this particular project, with the support of your outside consultants, and for some reason the city would not provide their consent to move forward. Chapter 164 is a statute that basically provides that when governmental agencies, such as special districts or cities or county or school districts, can't agree on something, there's a process to go through before you get into a litigation issue with them. The statute for the reference is called the Florida Governmental Conflict Resolution Act. That's found in Chapter 164, not a very long statute, 164.101. The purpose and the intent of the act is to provide and to promote, protect, and to improve the public health, safety, and welfare, and to enhance intergovernmental coordination efforts by the creation of a governmental conflict resolution procedure that can provide an equitable, expeditious, effective, and inexpensive method for resolution of conflicts between and among local and regional governmental entities. It is the intent of the legislature that conflicts between governmental entities be resolved to the greatest extent possible without litigation. The statute is preemptive also. The intention of the statute is to avoid litigation between governmental agencies, and it provides a step-by-step process to be able to get to, hopefully, a creative, constructive, thoughtful discussion between governments in the event that their relationship is in disharmony. I'm not suggesting that here, that's not my role as your counsel, but I needed to advise you that there is a statute out there that does embrace the potential for that situation. Just a couple of synopses quickly for you, and then the meeting is, have other things on your agenda. If you feel, if after submitting the plan, the city would reject that plan theoretically, given all the good faith intentions on both sides to review it as well as to submit it on your behalf. If there's a disagreement on whether it meets the requirements or expectations of the city, you have the right to follow Chapter 164 and to basically seek review of that situation. Essentially what happens is you adopt a resolution which would set forth what the dispute is and what the conditions are. And one of the conditions in the statute that relates to a basis for this issue is under the scope of the statute that governs such things as governmental entity permitting processes, which this really is. It's a governmental permit process. Essentially, the resolution sets forth your intention to raise the bar, ask for an enhanced review. That kind of raises the bar by requiring the entities to get together. And what it requires is that the executive director and the city manager get together and discuss the dispute, if there is one. If that fails, then it requires commission or council to board discussions with regard to a method by which to resolve the controversy. It envisions mediation as a process to try to get to a better conclusion. And then barring all those things happening in a positive way, it does allow for litigation between governmental agencies. I'm not for a moment suggesting that at all, but I've been asked by the chair what are legal options available in the event that the city fails to construe your proposal, your submittal in a favorable way, and if they would choose to not provide their consent reasonably. The statute provides certain timeframes. It also provides for mechanisms to get to those various steps, advertising, and public input, as a matter of fact, because the meetings are all public. The manager-to-manager meeting is essentially public. the commission to council. This is also a public meeting. The potential mediation has some aspects which are public and some which are private as a matter of conversation. This statute is intended to resolve controversy, not to create new controversy. But the chair asked, I gave her the best answer I could. I raised it on the record only to the extent that it is a counterpunch to the motion that was offered this evening, which is you're going to go to the city in good faith trying to submit a plan for approval. And you would ask for their reasonable consent and authorization to proceed. Of course, it's conditioned also upon the financing plan, which you in good faith are trying to pursue with an outside fiduciary who is a financial consultant. That being said, I raise it only to the extent that the record should reflect the fact that there are options and opportunities in the event that there's a frictional relationship, or one that doesn't harmonize with the city.
Thank you, Mr. Gorin. It's just my nature, commissioners, to ask for the what ifs, just to see and plan. I'm a planner, and I like to see what the potential is for all different scenarios. I'm not looking for trouble. I just was asking Mr. Gorin in a meeting, what if? So, just, if you have any comments or questions, please come forward with them for either me or with Mr.
I'm happy to
Gorin.
respond to any questions you may have about the statute, as to how it works or how it might work here. If there should be a situation if you needed to implement its requirements.
May I ask a question? Okay,
Happy to
so
try.
there's an awful lot there to absorb.
There is quite a lot.
So I gotta just think this through.
Sure.
So we're gonna have a specific meeting between the executive director, council, and a small group of people, which has to be a public meeting, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so that'll be a private meeting, and they will go forward, they will hopefully resolve things. If they do not resolve things, then each body goes back to their own body, and we have submitted a design plan, and my understanding from the last meeting is that they were not willing to approve the design plan because it didn't have the financial meetings of what they would like, although that's not identified in the interlocal agreement. So the conditions that have been imposed upon this are outside of what's in the written agreement that we both parties have agreed upon. So the next step, if both parties disagree, Mr. Gorin, would be you would enact this chapter 164, and that means there's a
Dispute.
A dispute.
Yes.
And who do we call, the governor? What do we
No,
do?
the dispute's between both bodies. It's not between the governors.
We already know we got a dispute.
It's between you as a special, between you as a special district and the city. The consequence of which is that if you can't find a way to rationally answer the question about your submittal, the answer is that you can follow the provisions of Chapter 164 and essentially require that occur. And what that means is you adopt a resolution that establishes what the dispute is and asking for relief.
From who?
The city.
And so we would file it, send them another letter saying we're requesting relief from the dispute based on Chapter 164.
There's a resolution that you have to adopt in public, discuss it in public, adopt it in public, and then along with a letter, submit that to the city indicating that there is a dispute that requires statutory conclusion.
Why would we not do that now? Because it seems like we've gone through multiple meetings with the city, and the message I got from the last meeting is they absolutely would not approve any design because it costs too much, but yet we have what we have is priced out, but we couldn't get any further to get actual contractor quotes and bids on it.
And then my best answer is that it's always creative and it's thoughtful to have a meeting if a meeting will produce some results.
Okay.
Sam, so if we move forward with the Chapter 164, and we've already negotiated with the same people that we'll be negotiating with on the Chapter 164, is that correct?
Theoretically, that is correct, yes.
So what happens if there is no resolution at that point? Is there another appeal process?
The end result is that under the statute, local government cannot sue each other, cannot get involved in litigation without going through this formal process. And that is a predicate for doing so unless there's a serious threat to life, health, and safety where there needs to be a lawsuit filed to protect and preserve life. That's not the issue here. This is a business relationship between the city and the district. So to that extent, it is a process that would be required by state statute if you found yourselves in a disharmonious relationship with the city not approving the plan.
As Sue said, I don't think anybody sitting here wants to have an adversarial relationship with our long partner that we've had. But if we get to the point where after the chapter 164 has been invoked and we're still at an impasse, is that when you might have to go to a writ of mandamus to enforce the terms of the agreement?
Well, I would prefer not to discuss whatever legal remedies are out there, but at some point in time, if you can't come to closure with the city because they want to approve the plan and you believe in your public heart of hearts that they're doing so unreasonably, then the remedy is to take legal action to proceed to protect the district's interests and those of the folks you represent.
The first step would be Brianne and Leaf meeting,
Under the statute, you need to adopt a resolution, which sets forth in great detail or in specific detail what the dispute actually is.
and then Leaf and Brianne would meet. Then if that didn't produce a solution, then it would be a joint meeting with the two bodies.
An obligatory meeting between both bodies as required by state statute, by
And
chapter
then-
164,
Then mediation.
which is also required by the statute.
Okay, thank you.
What if the city just decides to vote on the plan, and then they vote 3-2 or 4-1, and they approve the plan?
Then you have an approved plan.
Then we have an approved plan,
Right.
so they in fact could do that.
They could.
You know, probably not this last meeting, but the first joint meeting we had on this project, I recall the mayor saying that if we were not approaching him for funding, he would consider approving the plan. So I think I would recapture that video in time and take that with me so that if you're meeting with them, so that, I mean, we've come a long way since this time in terms of presenting our story, our vision for this golf course. And I think as it was said in the meeting, we have different visions and that's perfectly okay. But I think our vision will give the community what the community wants. A golf course that's and a facility that's up to date and a golf park that the families can enjoy. And I'm hopeful that we don't have to go too much further than this first meeting to get that approval.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, I may also, just to supplement the answer, you have done a number of things to try to be harmonious with your partner. And I know the city's made every effort in its good faith to do the same thing. If, however, at the end of the day, whatever day that may be, your requested approval is not granted and you believe it to be unreasonable, the statute that is available as a remedy under Florida law to in fact pursue what you believe to be correct. Understanding that in the prior discussions you had, commission to commission and council to council, et cetera, and all other manner of conversations have not been under the statute. They've been under just intergovernmental coordination under the interlocal agreement that you have. There are certain penalties for not acting in good faith. The statute tells us that if a primary conflicting governmental entity fails to participate in good faith in the conflict assessment meeting, the mediation, or other remedies provided for in this act, the primary disputing governmental entity that failed to participate in good faith shall be required to pay the attorney's fees and costs in that proceeding of the prevailing primary conflicting governmental entity. There's a penalty involved for that purpose. This is not draconian. This is in the statute. This is what it requires. It actually requires the parties to act in good faith. If they don't, there are consequences to not doing so. It's difficult for me to present this to you tonight, but it is a legal option that I must present to you as if and when the city, and I'm not speculating a particular answer. You've already kind of prejudged the answer by saying you've been through several different aspects of it before, but based on your motion this evening to proceed looking at financing and other options and asking for a meeting, you're obviously in the mode to think that we're at that point in time where we need to fish or cut bait, get an answer.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other comments or questions for Mr. Gorham?
No, I just have one comment. It's kind of like I guess it's like a last Hail Mary here. Just to kind of, I mentioned at the joint meeting, it didn't come of anything. It might be like too late in the game to do it, to come together and do a full day charrette, just to see if we can come to a common vision. I know everybody keeps saying they have a vision and we have a vision. And who knows whose vision is right and whose is gonna be financially viable and whose is gonna be in the end right. I'm the kind of person who talks things out and tries to bring people together as much as possible. Drives my husband crazy, but I feel like it's just who I am. And I don't know, like I said, if it's beyond that. But if we can meet for a day, a half a day, just to see if we can kind of come to some common ground on this. And I know some people are just beyond that at this point. They don't want to talk about golf anymore. But I just wanted to throw it out there to see if we can just do it. I know we have our joint meetings and everything, but I feel like, I don't know, Steve?
I'd be all for it if I thought we could make any progress,
But see, that's so negative.
well,
You have to have a positive
I'm trying
outlook
to,
on it.
I'm trying to be positive about this past the point where I'm positive that nothing will come of it. I really want to work with the city, but the message that I got back, and maybe it was the wrong message, but the message I got back was the city told us it's my way or the highway. And the city said to us, well, okay, if you want to go out and do it on your own, you do it on your own, entirely on your own. And if not, then we'll do it on our own, entirely on our own. So what I see is no longer a parallel path, but them going in one direction and us going in the other. And believe me, I would rather see it go like this and not as a head-on collision where there's a car wreck. I mean, working together. That's the only way this city is going to be able to function down the road.
But I feel like, you know how we did the working of the plan. We did it over those months. If we could just start from the beginning almost and go through the plan with them so that they can see where, and then they can put their input into where they feel like, I just feel like it's like a last Hail Mary that we can do, if at all we can do it.
If there was any indication from the city that they were willing to compromise.
You heard Monica. I mean,
Yeah, I heard
really
Monica, and I thought that was great.
And
But I
I
also
still feel
heard-
like Mayor Singer is open to whatever. I still feel like even Jeremy sounds, I mean, you know, he's more stringent on the dollars, I think. And but that on the one hand is also good because it looks at what we're spending. And
I'm fine with them looking at it, I'm fine with them reviewing it. They sent down an RFI. We're going in two different directions. The city, based on the RFI that they got, feels like we're spending too much money. We feel, based on the information we've received over the last couple of years, on the charrettes we've had, on vetting potential golf course architects, we feel that we're going in the right direction. So where do we meet? And I'm not saying the city is wrong and we're right, or that the city is right and we're wrong. I'm just saying that the city wants to go in an entirely different direction, and I don't see any indication that they're willing to change that. If I saw something, I'd say, great. I mean, if I saw a little bit, like, Andy, if you winked at me, maybe
I'm just trying to.
And I
But I
thought
also
we're
feel like.
optimism.
I have a
I'll leave it-
suggestion.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, this might simplify it a little bit more. If we allow Price Fazio to go in individually with each
No,
council member.
no.
I feel like they've definitely, that's why Monica came to the conclusion that she came to at the joint meeting, and she explained it. Because she met with them and she got everything explained line by line, to her. So I feel like that's why she kind of said what she said.
Aaron, I love your innocence in this, and I love your heart, and I don't suggest you change the way you look at things being a glass half full. To see that, sit there and witness some of the comments that were made toward you really were unprofessional, and I thought were very condescending, and they didn't reflect the respect that you're entitled to at this office. If for no other reason, I came away from there thinking that there was no way that we have reached out with every olive branch that we can think of to a term sheet to give them different options on participating, and it's come of nothing. I would not participate in a charrette and wouldn't recommend that we do that. We've talked about this golf course to the point where, you know, I wake up thinking about it. And you know, I want to do the right thing, and I think that we did the right thing by meeting with the council. I know some have special relationships with the folks there, but I think looking at it from the district's standpoint, I think we have tried to make every accommodation. I can't do anything about the price. It's the kind of golf course that we want, and I think that we'll all be proud of. I see no reason to have a charrette to spend a half a day talking about something that we have spent a year talking about. So, no, that's my thought.
Craig?
I appreciate where you're coming from, but I think we've done that. And so, you know, in all the conversations that we've had, June, July, you know, August, and then the most recent one, there were 3-hour meetings, and I have gone out of my way to, you know, present and make sure, ask questions, what do they want ahead of time, make sure we get it. So we narrowed the scope, we brought down the scope. Now it really doesn't matter. The message was, you don't like the price, okay? I firmly believe that when the city had the opportunity to go through and do a detailed design, RFI is very insignificant, but they have chosen not to do that. And so if they want to do that, fine. But I think they will come to the same conclusions. In my world, I thought they were the differences between 15 million, which is an estimate, and 19.9, which is more reality. Okay, so all the rest of it is kind of talk. So we're not that far off, but at the same token, when you go to a third party and say, pick apart the proposal, that's not much of a partnership. You know, and when you go forward with the things that have been done so far, that's not much of a partnership. I firmly believe that we have a tax increase. The reason we're talking it, it's not just this body for this golf course. This is for the whole community, because over time, the city has burdened the district with some of the responsibilities. We have to pay a $1.6 million payment to the CRA this year. I don't know what that's for. I don't know what we have gotten as a district for the CRA payments over the years. I think it's questionable. I think a $7.5 million dredging project of the Boca Inlet has really nothing to do with us, but yet we are stuck with it. And then there are other things that every time we turn around, it's a fully burdened overhead. If we didn't have the city's structure of it, we definitely want to hire them and work with them as the operational, but we're getting beyond the normal cost. We paid them, this year will be 16 million, plus another 4 million for their capital improvements. So you're looking at 20 million. We are a swing factor in their budget. And so, honestly, every time we've gone around to these different projects, a new contract comes up and it's tightening it up. So the concept of giving us a giant loan so that we can pay the debt and they can run the project, which we didn't really get into discussion yet what we could do, I don't think that's a good option at all. So I wouldn't want to be involved in it, and I think it's not beneficial for the district taxpayers, and I think the right approach is to proceed with the chairman going forward, individual meeting, see what they can work out. We'll come back again as a group. If they do not want to approve the design, that's okay. Our whole plan was we'll do it ourselves, and let's go see if we can get the financing to do it. It's unfortunate for the community, it's unfortunate for taxpayers that there's a delay, and I don't know what the ultimate cost of this is going to be, but it's not good for a partnership.
No, and I still feel like they should be paying a portion of it, which is why I feel like
I agree with you from a taxpayer perspective.
Yeah.
I do not treat our parks like they're investments, and nor do I think we should either. Ocean Strand is not an investment up for sale. Different parks are not up for sale, but apparently the city does think Boca Community is for sale, and they're selling it. So another reason why I don't think I'd want to turn over the title to the 18 on the west, because what are they going to do with that? What they told us is they're going to build a very minimal muni course. okay? And we've already said, no one in our meetings has come forward and said, build me Boca Muni in the east. We never heard that. So I don't have any, I think our vision is the correct vision to do it correctly in the golf course, not to be cheap on it. And I think that the city would come to that same conclusion if they had more time. But you know what, we've been doing this now for 2.5 years, and there's plenty of opportunity for them to be involved. And I'm more than willing to let them look at all the different things. I think it's a good idea. But at the end of the day, they've told us after multiple 3.5-hour meetings, no. And so, fine. Let's just leave it at that, and we'll proceed with financing independently, and we'll do it ourselves. It could have been better together, but they're not putting that option on the table, and it will cost the taxpayers, more time and money to do it this way. It would certainly be better with them.
Mr. Gorin, do you have any other council reports?
Just a couple of comments and I'll close, and appreciate the time and opportunity. When you inquired of me today, I thought best to give you my best legal answer, or at least to give you what legal options you have. And that was my intention in giving you the reference to Chapter 164. This statute, by the way, although it's a pre-litigation statute, the main objective of the statute is to find resolution between governmental bodies. It's not to create new ones. It's basically to resolve the ones that you got in a fashion which is both efficient and expeditious and appropriate. The difference between this process, which is statutorily created, and the process you have been in, is this one puts you within a certain framework that requires certain activity on the part of both parties. So please don't misconstrue my intentions in raising the bar of this discussion this evening, just to simply let you know that the statute exists, and if you would choose to implement it, it's available to you as a remedy to protect the interests that you represent as members, elected members of this body. If you have a plan that you want to promote and proceed with, and you can't do that because of reasons that are either unknown to you or are just simply in disagreement with the body that has an obligation to approve them, then you need to look at what options you have, and I'm happy to help you when those options need to be implemented.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Commissioners' reports, Mr. Rollins.
Madam Chairman, at our last regular meeting, I guess there were some sentiments that were expressed that may have come across as condescending to city staff, and if there were, I want to make it clear, and that was to Councilman Thompson, is that we love you guys, every one of you. You're doing a great job for us, and the resources that you need are not often there to do your job as effectively as you want to, and we realize that. You've heard Brianne give accolades to those folks in this facility, and the people I work with when I'm at the fields at Harmley are top notch. So don't ever think, and there's never been anybody on this dais that has said anything but favorable, positive things about city staff members. And I just want to be clear about that, because I don't want anybody leaving the room thinking otherwise. So other than that concludes my report, Chairman.
I second that. Craig?
I concur, and I would tell you that following the meeting, I personally reached out to Councilman Thompson and apologized to Councilman Thompson just for my own direct comments, and I think that we're all very passionate about what we believe, and so let's keep it at a higher level. So thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Steve?
One thing I'd like to bring to everybody's attention, while we promoted Brianne to permanent executive director, we didn't let the world know about it. And to that end, I think a press release is in order to be sent out to major media and to the members of the media that are here. I would greatly appreciate if it was reported in your publications, whether it be online or on paper. Ms. Harms is truly deserving of the public accolades that it might bring. And I think, just as a rule, we need to get ourselves out in front of the public more. and have our narrative heard more. I think we have a lot of great ideas. This is, it's been my experience that over the last 6 and some odd years that I've been a member of this board, some of the best people I've ever worked with. And I don't care what your political affiliation is outside this. You could be a communist or a Tea Partier. I don't care. You guys are all great, really. I'm sorry? Yes, and a verse of Kumbaya. But I think we do need to get our narrative out to the public, let them hear what we do, and let us get a fair shake in the press.
Were you reading my commissioner's report notes? Commissioners to visit HOAs, civic organizations, et cetera, with golf course design and other aspects of our vision for the community. This is getting scary.
Yes, they say great minds think alike.
Erin, do you have a report?
No.
Oh, good. Well, we're all good, and I think, Steve, it's time for you to...
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It's only 7 o'clock.
Oh, it's
Thank you all very much.
under 2 hours.